Welcome to our annual meeting. I will officially begin the meeting with an affirmation of our principles. The trustees of the Boston Public Library reaffirm our commitment to racial equity and to the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. More broadly, the library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequity, and injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the Boston Public Library Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people and is a place which has long served as a site of meetings and exchange among nations. We are committed to land acknowledgement for all locations at which we operate. And we reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement so that they take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. Our annual meeting almost always has a full agenda, and today is no exception. We're going to begin with a roll call of the trustees.
We're just waiting on a few to be upgraded for a moment, Priscilla. If you could just give a second for the.
Thank you, Pamela.
Linda Forey needs to be upgraded. Jay?
I've sent 2 invites. I don't want us to send too many more. Linda, you got to click on the prompt on your screen.
There we go. All right.
Good morning. Sorry, I was having a little challenge there. I apologize.
All right. I'm ready if you are for me, Priscilla, to take the roll.
Good to see you. Good to see you, John, and welcome Linda and China.
Thank you.
And Senator Rush, welcome. Good to see all of you.
All right. This morning, I'll just read your last names for efficiency on all the votes. This morning, Vice Chair Evelyn Ortiz will not be attending. Zamawa Arenas for the last time.
Here.
Jabari Asim.
Here.
Baal.
Here.
Berman.
Here.
Bradley.
Here.
Cronin.
Here.
Douglas.
Here.
Yasina Forey.
Here.
Tyler.
Here.
Jeff Hawkins will be absent today. Joyce Linehan will also not be attending. Rush.
Here.
Tyler.
Here.
And Westra.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Great. Thank you. The first order of business is the approval of minutes from our May 18th, 2022 meeting. You've all received the minutes, and could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We need a roll call for this, Pamela?
I do.
Okay, we need a roll call vote for the approval of minutes.
Arenas.
Yes.
Asim.
Yes.
Baal.
Yes.
Berman.
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
Cronin.
Yes.
Douglas.
Yes.
Yasina Forey.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Rush.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
And Westra.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So May is definitely a time of transitions. We're all going through them with graduations and weddings and opening of the city. And we have new trustees appointed by the mayor, and we have 2 trustees who are completing their service on the board. First, Joyce Linehan, appointed by Marty Walsh, made a huge contribution to launch our Strategic Community Engagement Committee. On that committee have been trustees Evelyn Ortiz, Zamawa, Joe Berman. And under Joyce's leadership, the committee utilized their talents and resources to amplify and connect BPL programs. So we want to really thank Joyce for her service to the board. She's a friend of Lower Mills and the Ashmont Library, and she will always remain in that capacity. So thank you, outgoing trustee Joyce. And I see some applause there. Thank you. Zamawa Arena joined the board in 2006, 16 years of service, contributing her talent, her wisdom, to the finance and audit committee. And she's probably served on every committee. She's with us today, and I'm going to give trustees an opportunity to acknowledge her. And I want to start with a note from our vice chair, Evelyn Arena Ortiz. And she writes, "Dear Z, in our 13 years working together in this great board, I've relied on your insights, experience, and advice. You have always served with gratitude and honor, never afraid to ask the hard questions that make us ponder. Thank you for your service. We will miss you dearly. I am certain that you will continue to serve the great Boston community in other capacity, and our paths will cross again. Today, I don't say farewell. Vaya con Dios y hasta luego." So trustees.
Yes, this is John Heiler Zamara. When I first joined, the thing I remember is how kind you were in trying to help me figure out the board. And it was a very different time back then. And I got to tell you, it was an honor and a pleasure. And I had so much fun just learning the board and your guidance. And you became a really true friend to me on that board. So I'll never forget that. And I think what Evelyn just said sums it up. Your caring, your empathy, your heartfelt questions and challenges. Even when there was disagreement, there's not enough of this today, but you listen and would have discussions and debates, and it would all end in just being friends. I don't know what I can say other than you've made this institution so much better by your presence, and we'll miss you, but hopefully, as Evelyn said, our paths will cross again. But just heartfelt thanks for making my acceptance on the board and my transition to the board fantastic. And then for all the work you've done to make this library one of the great in the world. So appreciate it.
Other comments? I know that David and the staff will be saying something later. Samara, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Priscilla, and thank you for the opportunity to just say a few words. I'm really, it's a bittersweet moment for me to step down from the Board of Trustees, but it's been an incredible privilege and honor to serve an institution that's very close to my heart, that I believe is an anchor for Boston. And I'm just excited for the days that lie ahead and the future of the library. And I will always be a supporter, connected to the work and to the communities and to the branches. And when I first joined, I was the young professional on the board, and no longer that, but I learned a lot. And I'm so grateful for each and every one of the trustees for your collaboration, your input, and your friendship. So all the best to the library, and I won't be going far. Thank you.
Good luck, Zamara.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much. Your legacy will live on. Your wisdom, the contribution that you made is indelible. And, so thank you so much for your service. Continuing on, please know that the mayor has reappointed for another term, John Heiler, Evelyn Arena Ortiz, and me. we're going to have some new trustees joining the board in September. Jose Masso III. Jose is the host and producer of Consalsa, a weekly bilingual program that's on WBUR. And also joining the board will be Dr. Lynn Perry Wooten, and she's the president of Simmons. And you may know that Simmons offers a master's degree in library and information sciences. They will formally join the board in September. I also want to let you know regarding our trustee update is that the Special Collections Committee, chaired by Trustee Ben Bradley with Vice Chair Matthew Dames, had a full schedule of meetings and discussions in their first year to appreciate the full array of offerings and possibilities that by the Special Collections Committee. They now have an actionable charter to guide their future work. Also, please note that trustees Jabari Asim, Joe Berman, and Jeff Hawkins are members of that committee. And I want to thank Ben for his willingness to continue in his role as chair. Ben, anything?
Oh, thank you, Priscilla. I think special collections are just one of the jewels of the library, and really enjoying my involvement in the committee, and to after the rare books open, getting some exhibition space going, and just working showcase our jewels.
Great. Thank you, Ben. A final noteworthy item and update. You may have noticed that Mayor Wu has reorganized her cabinet, and in the process, the BPL has moved from arts and sciences and now a department under the newly formed Cabinet of Human Services. And Human Services Cabinet is fundamental to providing direct, necessary services to support all Bostonians. Under that cabinet are youth engagement and employment, the Age Strong Commission, returning citizens. And the goal of this reorganization is to prioritize the delivering of more equitable services to ensure opportunities for all Boston residents. And clearly, that's consistent with our goal and our motto, free to all. Are there any questions or comments that you have about that? Okay, well, thank you. That's my opening and trustee update. And please, I'd like to turn it over to our president, David Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, trustees. It's a pleasure to be with you once again for the annual meeting of the Board of Trustees. I would like to open by adding the staff's thanks to both Joyce in absentia and especially to Zamawa, who is here with us today. I've personally enjoyed your leadership, your guidance, and your always holding us to account. I think this is true for Joyce, but also for Zamawa. Keeping the staff and the community at the center of the trustees' work and interest has been a hallmark of your tenure on the board. And so I want to recognize that in particular, and thank you for your service. And I really hope that you will not be a stranger to the library. Thank you. I also want to congratulate our chair, Priscilla Douglas, on being the commencement speaker for Northeastern University. Her speech, which you can find online, was inspiring and passionate, and just an example of calling these individuals to their future in a way that was truly inspiring. So Priscilla, I know that's not the business of the library, but thank you for your broader leadership as well. I also want to congratulate Michael Colford, our Director of Library Services. He was named to the Massachusetts Library Association's Hall of Fame 2 years ago, but unable to celebrate in person until this year, an honor which they were able to recognize in person last night at the annual conference. Also, we look forward to working with the incoming trustees and our newly appointed trustees as we move through the year. Since we last met, a few operational updates. Hiring continues apace. We have this fiscal year added over 40 new individuals to the staff, which is unprecedented, but given the number of vacancies we have, really, really good news. I'm also happy to report on the equity front that 43% of those individuals identify as staff of color. We continue to focus on our return to fuller in-person hours with the accomplishment of adding back the first wave of Saturday hours across all branches, Sunday hours at the Central Library, which have now been extended to 11 a.m. To 5 p.m. from the original 1 to 5 on a trial basis. Given the reality of the pandemic being still with us, we are continuing a moderated return to in-person programming, continuing to prioritize small groups and outside events. We maintain the recommended, the policy of masks being strongly recommended for all visitors. We'll continue to maintain that for as long as it is necessary. Earlier this season, of course, our staff experienced additional stress with visits from self-identified protesters. We continue to see attempts around the country in libraries at book banning, and we continue to maintain our stance of being resistant, of course, to censorship. You have in your packets the accomplishments and goals summary document, essentially a almost 20-page document that looks at many, many accomplishments despite all of the challenges that we encompassed or encountered over the last year. So in the interest of time, I'm happy to leave that for you to read, but we're really thrilled with the accomplishments of the whole staff for our public under these constraints. As you know, 3 jewels of our capital project were the Adams Street branch, the Roxbury branch, and Rosendale branch, all 3 of which were reopened and renovated over the last 2 years. Each of them has won a separate set of awards for construction, for design, and those are listed in your packet for you. The Ways and Means City Council hearing on the budget for the library will be held later this afternoon. You will later in today's agenda be taking a vote on both the operating and capital budgets contingent on passing by the City Council. We continue to look for a great summer with programs such as court concerts in the courtyard and a vast range of programs across our branches. We still hope for a normal year ahead at some point, and we continue to maintain our focus on equity work, both internally and externally, workforce development, youth services. We will soon be taking appointments for our newly completed rare books department, leading up to a series of ribbon cuttings and formal events in September. We look forward to the completion of the Faneuil branch in Oak Square in Brighton later this coming fiscal year, and the formal commencement of design and construction for the Fields Corner branch, as well as many other projects that are also funded in next year's budget. With so many new staff joining us, we have an unprecedented opportunity to reboot our orientation, our onboarding, and continue the work of building a stronger staff culture here at the Boston Public Library. One recent challenge I do want to apprise you of, which was a rather catastrophic event at the South End branch, where due to a water leak in the basement, all of the electrical and mechanical systems have been damaged, and we are still working through the assessment and what it will take to bring that branch back online. of course, we continue to serve the community through our other locations and online in the meantime. I will pause there before I introduce my first guest speaker under this section of the report.
I really appreciate the fact that you start off your list of accomplishments and goals, the summary, with the key word of pivot. And the capacity to pivot is really based on the strength of your staff, the strength, expertise, and the commitment of your staff, because without that foundation, changing quickly and accomplishing all the things that you've been able to do during this really tough time, you would not have been able to do. So kudos to the staff for having that foundation.
Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Priscilla. David, I just thank you for your report, and everything is so encouraging, but I am a little concerned, and you and I have had a couple of offline conversations about this wave of book censorship that seems to be spreading across the country, and moves to remove certain books that people don't like from library shelves. And I just hope that the staff at the BPL and we as trustees will stand firm in supporting the First Amendment and making sure that we have access to all books and resist any attempt to censor or ban or restrict the public's access to books. And I just want to go on the record as saying that.
Thank you. The good news for us is that we have only had about 3 formal challenges, which is normal for the Boston Public Library. Obviously, any challenges are reviewed, and any action that's needed is taken. But our thoughts and our support really goes to colleagues across the country, particularly in schools and academic environments, who are bearing the brunt of these challenges. ALA has in particular come out pretty strongly with a recommitment to resisting any forms of censorship. And you know, we're certainly supportive of that move. Thank you for keeping our attention on these threats to the values of public library as part of a thriving democracy, and we'll continue to do so. Of course, any of these moves adds additional stress to those who work on the front lines of librarianship.
David, what books were challenged here and by who?
I don't have that information in front of me. We can certainly get it for you.
I was just going to ask, do we ever remove a book based on a challenge by someone?
I'm not aware of us ever having done that.
This is when we're all thankful we're in Boston. So again, I think one of the things that occurs around the rest of the country is this institution always is back in the day a beacon, and I think it's really critical. So I echo the words of the other board members on feeling the same way, that we'll fight anything that goes after the First Amendment rights, and of course any type of book.
Trustees, thank you for your support.
David, if I may just make a reminder that public comment will be closing at 9 a.m. If anyone from the public would like to leave public comment, please sign up under the chat by 9 a.m.
Thank you. In my opening remarks, I referenced the work happening at the Faneuil Branch Oak Square in Brighton. And we have a now both somewhat sad but equally celebratory opportunity to hear for a very special move being proposed by the Friends of the Branch. And I'd like to ask Anne Mazzola to join us and present this proposal.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Anne.
Welcome in.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. So my name is Annie Mazzola, and I'm the president of the Friends of the Faneuil Library, and so honored to be here today. The first thing I'd like to do is sincerely thank the trustees and President Leonard for the opportunity to present this proposal to name the children's room of the Faneuil Branch Library JJ's Room, in honor of Jairam Miguel Rodriguez Raul, who tragically passed in 2019 at age 17. I'd also like to thank Pam for her guidance and patience through this whole process. So next, I'd like to briefly state why we want to do this. If any of you have ever had the pleasure of meeting young Jairam, you would know about the passion, intelligence, and zest for life found in his giant brown eyes. The minute they fix on you, you know this is a special kid. This passion, this spirit led him to do some great things with the precious little time he had here on Earth. And in the interest of time, I'll try to capture just a few highlights, because I could go on for days about the clubs, the bands, the teams, the preservation boards, the climate justice councils that he was on, the racial justice lectures that he gave, which would show you his passions like music, Latin classics, the outdoors, the environment, equity, his friends, his family, his community. The Faneuil Branch Library was an integral part of Jairam's community. From before he could speak, his mom would come to the library with a laundry basket of books to return and to take out. Before he could read, he sat transfixed on the library stage, soaking in each word, each syllable offered to him. Before he could tie his shoes, he had a microphone in his hand, speaking up and out about keeping his branch open when it faced closure. Before he left high school, he and his family generously contributed to and took part and volunteered in nearly all library events. The Faneuil Branch Library was an integral part of Jairam's community, and it played a huge role in the person he became. And when kids pass through the door into JJ's room, perhaps they'll feel his passion and his spirit and know that this is their community too, that this very special Faneuil Branch Library is part of their community too. This is why we're asking that the children's room be named JJ's Room. We've provided all the required documents that Pamela has kindly shared with you, and we most humbly ask that you vote to approve this proposal today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
So we have a call for a vote. I just want to add that I had a chance to watch JJ's testimony to the City Council on March 31st, 2019. And everything that you said about him, the big brown eyes, his passion, his purpose, his intellect, you know, it was truly came through. So I support this wholeheartedly, and thank you and Council Braden for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you.
I would add that the administration supports this move as well. It's an opportunity to recognize both JJ and his whole family's involvement in the community and the branch, but equally it is about centering the community and centering a young person, and a young person who cared very much about matters of climate and all that goes with that. So we too are supportive of this move.
Thank you for being here, Anne, and for sharing JJ's story. And this is wonderful. And I have to say, I think I remember JJ because I was elected then, and we were fighting for not, to stop the closure of the libraries. And Faneuil was one of them. Lower Mills was one of them. And so I thank you and the community, for doing this in his honor. This is wonderful.
You want a motion, Priscilla?
Yes, so voted that the trustees of the Boston Public Library approve the dedication and renaming of the children's room at the Faneuil Branch Library to JJ's Room after Jairam Miguel Rodriguez Raul. And a motion, Cheryl?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second.
We need to do a roll call, correct, Pamela? Thank you.
Yes. I'll read your last names. Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes,
Christina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Rush,
Yes.
Tyler,
yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
Unanimously voted. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Anne. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Actually, I will take the accomplishments as read and reported on in my opening comments. We will move to the next presenter. And I would like to ask Angela Vezaga, our Director of Strategic Partnerships, who now manages the relationship with the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners for the library, to present the MBLC 22 action plan.
Good morning, trustees. I'm here to present the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners Action Plan for 2022. We submit an action plan every year in order to be eligible for construction or LSTA direct grants from the MBLC. The following action plan walks us through the goals from our strategic plan, which we do every year. I'm just going to walk you briefly through the action plan. I believe you've all seen a copy of our plan. The first goal focuses on community gathering, which we continue to do by improving our spaces based on the needs of our community. We talked briefly about the Faneuil branch and the work that we're doing, and we continue planning for Chinatown, Upham's Corner, as well as a design process for the Fields Corner branch. Our second goal focuses on program and services with a focus on underserved communities and youth. We achieve this goal by adding 2 new key positions to the BPL. We recently hired Deandra Williams, our career counsel, who will expand our workforce development work. Taylor Morris, our library social worker, who will launch our peer navigator pilot program. We also recently created a theme for our programming for fiscal year 23 that focuses around climate change and climate justice. We are also prioritizing and delivering youth services by reshaping our homework assistance program to not only aid kindergarten to 8th grade students, but now also to aid high school students as well. And we expand our early literacy programs through our Future Readers Club. We also, our third goal is to continue to be a sustainable organization. We will bolster the Metro Boston Library Network's staffing to handle the influx of Boston Public School librarians over the next 2 years, and we will provide better service. We will complete our digital engagement community history grant partnership with Northeastern University and take next steps to provide sustainability at the BPL for this type of work. We are in the process of implementing a plan to modernize the Boston Public Library technology and tools based on a refreshed technology plan, improve our security of collections, especially in preparation for the return of our rare books department, and develop metrics to better determine the effectiveness of the library's programs and services. Our fourth goal focuses on our collection and special collections, stewarding our collections by hiring a cataloging and processing manager and configuring technical services to provide maximum support to collection discovery. Work with staff to evaluate collections ordering plan and incorporate a diversity audit for library circulating collections, as well as preparing for the reopening of our rare books department, including Aon implementation, website information, and the layout of collections, and start phase 1 of our founding research collection project. Our last goal focuses on supporting our EDI priorities. We do this work by recently hiring our equity and outreach coordinator, Rudy Celestine, identifying and executing opportunities to become an institution member of caucuses or affinity groups within professional organizations such as the American Library Association, investing in initiatives that develop and improve employee culture, improve diversity in hiring, and aim to achieve equity in professional development. And those are our goals. Thank you.
I would just add that you will see, essentially a strong derivative relationship between our strategic 5-year roadmap, which the trustees have voted on, the version of that is submitted in this document to the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. And as you will hear in a moment, with respect to our equity, diversity, and inclusion updates from Rudney. So if there are no questions, as I don't believe this is new material, just in a new form, we can ask the chair to call for a motion on the vote.
So the voted that the trustees of the Public Library of the City of Boston approve to accept the Boston Public Library's 2022 action plan. I have a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Samala. Second,
Second.
and thank you. Okay, all in favor? We have to do a roll call vote.
Yes. I'm gonna run through it real fast. Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin, Cheryl,
Oh, sorry, yes.
Douglas,
Yes,
Lucina Fori, Linda, Tyler,
Yes.
Rush,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved.
thank you, Angela.
Thank you. My next colleague joining us is Rudney Celestine, who is our BPL Equity Programs Officer. The trustees have asked for periodic updates on our work in this area. And I'd actually now like to turn the podium over to Rudney to give you some updates based upon this work in progress that stems from this trustees vote in 2020 regarding the racial equity, diversity, and inclusion statement and commitment. Thank you. Rudney.
Thank you, David. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Whitney Celestin, and I include the phonetics of my name so you know how to pronounce it, as well as my preferred pronouns. And I included the pronouns to begin this presentation and tell you that we are focusing on adding pronouns to our profiles, right? And the system, we use Microsoft. So when you're in Outlook, you're sending an email and you put your mouse on someone's profile and you see the photo and their email and department. And I think it should also include that way it's easier for folks to identify how people prefer to be addressed within this organization. And I'm happy that Keith Gillette is working with Microsoft, trying to fix the bugs so that we can have that access for this feature. Next slide, please. And I started on February 22nd, 2022. I thought that was a special date. Next slide, please. So this shows me here, I'm on the far left side, and on my right is Jean Derwin all the way out. This was a Haitian Heritage Month event, and for me, it felt good to be in that space. I went on a Saturday to the Mattapan branch, and Danielle Legault was there. Danielle Legault-Georges was there as an author presenting on her new book. And for me, reflective programming is everything we should be doing at BPL. That's one of my favorite things here, because we get to show our communities that we appreciate them by virtue of our programming. And there's no better way to do that. And I love how on bpl.org, a way for you to show and highlight this programming, we have tags, right? So the day when I discovered this event, I said, wow, there's no tag for Haitian Heritage Month, right? That's an easy add. Immediately contacted Maya Geddes, and you know what? She got it done for me within 15 minutes. So reaching equity, making sure that we're representing the communities. So equity is representation. Next slide, please. All right, so as you know, the Black Lives Matter movement pushed a lot of organizations and persons to do a lot of introspect. BPL released its equity statement in August of 2020 and hired the YW Boston in continuation of this commitment to give us the first equity program, as well as myself, your first EBO, your first equity program officer. And one of my favorite quotes in that statement is, no plan should take final shape without the explicit contributions of people of color, starting with our own staff members from across the whole organization. And so how do we reflect that? We have 8 working groups total, and you see them reflected on the left side of the screen. And the ones that are bolded, that means there's something new in there for you to look at. And I love that feature because it's easy for me to just take a quick glance and see what channels I need to interact with. So clearly here, collection development, collection management had a new message in there. So how do we make sure that staff of color are included? We have a BIPOC working group. And recently we've held, our BACWOC and Allies meeting, and we'll be having this working group operating just as these other working groups. We operate them out of teams, as you see, and you see the little lock, which means that they're locked just to give us some space to collaborate to avoiding issues. And you also see the BPL Cookbook Committee up there, right? Another way, fun way for us to include staff and empower them to involve each other in the change here. So look out for a library of spices and flavors coming to you. Next slide, please. All right, belong and take action. That's really the new phrase I'm using for the program. People want power. People want to have power. And that came from Kamara Sika, who was the chief program officer for YW Boston. I had the pleasure of meeting them along with David and some other colleagues. And we had a nice conversation about how things are going with me. She was very nice to me. So she said something during the meeting and I said, that really sticks with me. She said, people need to feel like they belong. People want to have power. So how do you do that? You split it up, right? And we're doing this in form of working groups. Staff are empowered to bring up ideas, we break them down, and then we assess whether, we assess what we need to do, right? And then we go forward. So every meeting, we take notes, we note down our tasks so that everyone is aware of what's going on, so that we have some level of transparency in what we're doing here. Next slide, please. So my job is also very collaborative. Digital equity, meaning that we're allowing our patrons to connect to the internet, and we're giving them from a computer, a Chromebook, an internet router, as well as service with T-Mobile until June 2023. Kurt Mintzberger was our Chief Technology Officer who started working on this program, and he's still working on it at some capacity. And when I came on board, this already started. So how can I contribute to this as your EPO? Obviously, language and communication access is one of my main goals within my role. So I make sure that I work with the comms department so that we can get this translated in multiple languages. It's as simple as that, but it goes a long way. This program is amazing to me because we can use the library system that we have to attract patrons, right? And they only need a library card. We don't ask too much information. You just need to be a resident of the city of Boston. And I'm happy that we've partnered with Boston Housing Authority, the Mayor's Office of Urban Mechanics to get this program on the way. Next slide, please. Equity is also transactional, right? Equitable procurement. That's a big focus for Ellen, a big focus for David, a big focus for the city. And in our conversations, when we're trying to get an event together for Women's History Month, and I started on February 22nd. History Month, March started very soon after I started. And by March 30th, we were able to hold this BPL-wide event. And I didn't do that by myself. So we began by hiring a Black woman-owned business. Teresa, Sweet Teas is Dorchester-based, so we felt great about using the supplier diversity here to include in our event. Next slide, please. Oh, you can keep it here. Sorry. So the COB Certified Business Directory is one feature that I want to highlight for the city of Boston. And when I worked with Teresa, I said, Teresa, are you listed in that? Because we're not able to find you. So I love that feature because we're able to go in and look up specific businesses within our city that we can partner with, right? And increase this equity. Next slide, please. Thank you. I think you have to drag it up. Yeah, perfect. There you go. All right, so Women's History Tea. I got that title from Priscilla Foley. Thank you, Priscilla. Women's History Tea was an event where we had every single branch receive a box with all the goodies that they needed. Every single location got one, including the Archival Center. We received, so this postcard here is what I designed as an engagement piece, right? Name one figure who inspires you, this Women's History Month, and why. And we also had a portal online, and the way I set it up is to attract people to my portal for the BPL Equity Program on Microsoft Teams, which is where we run them out of. And people were able to write on these cards through the events, and we also included cards in the boxes to the branches. I received 58 postcards total, and we did all of that in a month. And I'm very proud of BPL for helping me do that, because if my onboarding process wasn't thorough enough, Sarah's Affairs Executive of Staffing gave me a full 2-week schedule. And that two-week span, I was able to meet so many leaders within the organization. That's why I felt comfortable enough, right, to address different staff and collaborate to make this event happen. And I recruited volunteers, right? We, we decorated the place and we had a good time. Next slide, please. Okay, so from these entries, I thought it would be fun to put all of those into a word cloud. And as you can see here, the biggest word is mom. And I thought that was very, very awesome, very cute. And you see here the different names that are on there. That kind of gives you a representation of the 58 people who participated. Next slide, please. And this is us. So this is just a picture here of everything we did for Women's History Month. And you see Angela here with her puppy. And that's when I asked folks to submit. You can see at the top line, who runs the world? That was my first outreach to staff to ask them to submit photos of themselves within that. And yes, we're making history here every day. This is BPL. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudney, for giving the trustees really a flavor of both some of the bigger strategic directions, but a number of examples of where I think you and we and the team have been rolling up sleeves and getting the work done. So I think people want to see not just statements and lofty goals, but actually see the reality. And the reality is programs like this internally and externally, as well as the detailed work that now, not just the 4 initial, but now the total 8 working groups are focused on. So thank you.
Any questions from the trustees? Questions or comments?
I have a comment, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Rudney for your work here. It takes a lot of work to make sure that folks feel comfortable in their workspace, and we value that as a big part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So thank you for your work, because it seems like folks are, happy in their workspace, and we really value that. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you. And welcome. We've had a chance to meet when you first started, and you clearly have hit the ground running, and we look forward to your leadership, your energy, and helping to ensuring that this clearly is an organization where people belong and feel welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. I would now like to move to 2 remaining topics in my report, both of which relate to our special and research collections area, and Beth Prindle will present on both of these. Beth.
Thank you, David, and good morning, trustees. I'm Beth Prindle, head of special collections, and today, first I'm going to be talking with you about a new draft collection security policy for your review and we hope approval. So a little bit of background about this work. It started 3 years ago now as an integral part of the special collections renovation and our departmental restructuring. The focus on collection security originated out of a recognition that BPL did not have a codified public-facing policy outlining our institutional commitment to preserving and securing our special and research collections. And I want to emphasize that what I'm speaking about today, is not focused on the general circulating collections, meaning those materials that patrons take home from central or branches, but instead those collections that are non-circulating and are part of those research and special materials. So this policy addresses our respective rarity as a public institution that holds collections that are equivalent in significance and scale to those held by major universities and private institutions. But being that public institution, our commitment to collection security always has to be balanced with our fundamental mission to provide equitable access and use over time to both current generations and future generations of patrons. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. So I'd like to briefly introduce the collection security team. This policy was drafted by that team, which was formed in 2019 and is currently comprised of the following members, all of whom are on as participants today. Eamon Shelton, our Director of Operations, Jessica Bitely, our Preservation Manager, Jay Michelle, our Manager and Lead Curator of Rare Books and Manuscripts, Jamila Beasley, our Collection Security Manager. Jamila is in a new role, which was actually identified and added as part of this work around collection security, and she joined the BPL team in November of 2021, and me as Head of Special Collections. And so the standards and guidelines that we use to define this policy, which was distributed to you as part of your trustee packet, were really created in support of the library's mission, which promotes and prioritizes a public use of collections. And it was very important that all collection security procedures are governed by our ongoing work related to equity, diversity, and inclusion, as you just heard about in Rudy's and other conversations today. So the goal of the work for this policy is to provide the infrastructure to safely and confidently promote the collections activation. The goal is not to hold things as an end result. The goal is to promote that they are used by people. And this is particularly important as we look to reopening our public service and our special collections reading room in the coming months. So in planning and what guided this work, in planning and drafting this policy, we relied on standards such as the Association of Research Libraries Code of Ethics and the Rare Book and Manuscript section of ALA's guidelines regarding security and theft in special collections to ensure that we were following ethical and equitable best practices and standards as we crafted this policy. So a brief overview of the policy components. This really is high-level work that is intended to inform future work around practices and procedures. But the policy includes the following components. It includes a collective library-wide responsibility for collection security. Collection security is not, it's not a few people who are responsible for it. It's really imbuing the entire institution, our staff, with that responsibility in their respective areas. It includes an institutional commitment of resources in order to ensure that this policy can be enforced. It includes a commitment to the security of our digital collections as well as our physical collections, including their metadata. It establishes access levels to collections and spaces. It involves a transparency about our data retention and privacy as it relates to usage of these collections. And we have a particular goal of being transparent about that information that we gather and the security of that information over time. And then it also addresses our response measures to security events. So as this policy was drafted, it went through numerous iterations, and we circulated it to a variety of stakeholder groups for input and questions. So this included library and union leadership. It included various library stakeholders, including the Special Collections team, Digital Services team, the MAP Center staff. We circulated to the chair and vice chair of the Special Collections Committee, that's Trustee Bradley and Matthew Dames, and ultimately to all staff with the opportunity both to provide input via survey or via an informational meeting as well. So what happens with this policy once it is put into effect? This is intended to be a public-facing document that, if approved, will be posted on the library's website and openly accessible, much like our appropriate use policy and our collection development policy. Work then moves into drafting specific staff procedures that will be rolled out to breathe life into this policy with accompanying documentation and training. The work is iterative, and built into the policy are regular reviews and audits of our procedures and processes to make sure that this is actually doing what we want it. This policy is achieving what we want it to achieve, and our policies and procedures are achieving what we want to achieve, and reviewing the policy itself on a biannual basis. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and then I believe it will be put forward for a vote.
Beth, this is Christian Westford. Thanks very much for speaking to us this morning. That was really helpful. I wondered if you could speak a little bit more to how people are thinking about the policy as it relates to special collections and how this group has been thinking about weighing the desire to provide access to the public and make the special collections tangible and accessible with the obvious need to provide security and protect those collections.
I think that's an excellent question, because our goal, and I can't emphasize this enough, is about access. It is not about holding things in storage. It is about how do we create an entire structure that permits us to bring materials so that they can be used by patrons. So that would include, for example, a commitment to making sure that we have the structures in place, whether it is security measures within a reading room that allows us to bring out all of the items in our collection, that we have structures in place that have staff feel confident that if there is an incident, for example, that they are that they understand the processes and the procedures by which we appropriately respond to it. It allows us to really think about in terms of equity and access, recognizing that using special collections comes with different restrictions than in other collections. How do we still make it the most welcoming and accessible experience that people can have? And in part, it is by really informing people what the practices and procedures are. A lot of it is about providing information, we believe, on the front end to say that this, not that you can't use this, this is how you use this, and these are the structures that are in place. When you sign up to use these materials in a reading room, we will be very transparent that this is information that we would be collecting from you so that we can keep information about when collections were used, but also that we are committed to protecting your privacy and we are committed to protecting that data. And so I think a lot of this is about being very transparent, much more transparent in a variety of ways about how this collection is used and how people can use it, and providing really that backbone that we can communicate both with our staff and others about that.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Jabari Beth. Thanks for the presentation. I'm curious about the language in the policy that addresses the storage of surveillance information in perpetuity. And I wanted to know what the rationale was behind that, the in perpetuity in particular.
Just let me pull up the language. So just to read this, because I know that people don't have necessarily this in front of them. It says we may keep records on personal information and usage data related to special collections in perpetuity. It does not guarantee that. But one of the, and I'm going to actually ask if Damon Shelton is also on this call as Director of Operations. He can speak to this from a security perspective as well. But one of our goals is really to provide our team with the capacity to maintain information as needed to secure the collections, but that is within a guideline. Also, for instance, by data retention, that is directed by the amount of technology capacity that we have to hold materials. I'm going to ask if Eamon can respond to this.
Sure. Yeah. Just to add to that, it's not I think may was an important sort of choice of words there. So if there were a particular incident that we were investigating or that occurred, then we would take that opportunity to save that data and would keep it as long as we needed to. And so sometimes there are many, between the time of an incident, it could be several years before an item turns up again. And so then that would be important in that effort. So it's not a blanket that we would keep everything forever. And to be quite honest, we wouldn't have the capacity to do so, but it would be based on incidents that occurred.
Yeah, we are not going to be, as a library, in the business of, in general, keeping surveillance data. This is a touch point for I think the nature of democracy. We don't want to be policing our spaces generally. We don't want to be maintaining surveillance data for more than is necessary. This is probably the one area where if an event were to occur with respect to a particular collection, that might not be discovered for for some long period of time. Or, as Eamon has stated, where there's an active investigation, we would want to have the ability to do that. But I think that should be in the exception to our general rules rather than a default or standard.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the collection security policy?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Messina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Rush,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank Beth and Eamon. I know you're going to go on to the next one, but I mean, 3 years in the making. This is such a comprehensive and well thought through policy. As you also described, it required an extraordinary collaborative effort. There are a lot of people weighing into this policy. So thank you and your team for your leadership on this.
Thank you.
Beth, do you want to go right ahead?
Absolutely. And I'd really like to thank everyone on the CST as well. It was a long process, and we're really excited to move forward with it as a formal policy. So thank you, trustees. So changing topics, I want to talk a little bit about a long-term deposit that the BPL has with the Boston Medical Library. A brief background: that Boston Medical Library is a very old institution. It's a private library that was formed in 1805, so actually older than BPL, to serve the need of practicing physicians. And it was incorporated in 1877 and became the Library of the Massachusetts Medical Society in 1946. Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. served as its first president. Over 100 years ago, the trustees of the library entered into an agreement with the Boston Medical Library to deposit a portion of the BPL's research collection of about 6,000 titles related to medicine with the Boston Medical Library. So putting something on deposit means that they serve as sort of temporary custodians, but the books remain owned by BPL. The agreement was intended to centralize researcher and physician access to these materials, and the books were moved from the central library to the Boston Medical Library. Over 90% of this deposit collection is 19th century medical literature, primarily in English and European languages. So in 1960, the Boston Medical Library entered into a relationship with Harvard to deposit their collections, including BPL's deposit with our full agreement, at the Harvard Medical School's new Countway Library. And for reference, it's located just down Huntington Avenue here in Boston. The BML with the BPL collections moved there in 1965, where they have been ever since. And Harvard has overseen their care and administration. They are publicly available and cataloged. So as of this year, Boston Medical Library has decided to terminate its relationship with Harvard and remove its books from the Countway Library. They're still determining what that final disposition will be, but no decision has been made by their board, and the collection will be placed in storage. So after multiple productive conversations that we've had internally with Boston Medical Library board members and with Harvard Countway staff, all parties are in agreement that dissolving the BPL and Boston Medical Library relationship is desirable. It's important to do so now to prevent the BPL's deposit collection from being moved from Countway into storage with the rest of the Boston Medical Library collections. And I want to emphasize that the terms of our 1905 deposit are such that Boston Medical Library will return the collection upon written request by the trustees at any time. So that was baked into the original deposit. So pending your approval of a decision to dissolve the BPL's relationship with the Boston Medical Library today, we would next send a letter under Chair Douglas's name, terminating the deposit relationship with Boston Medical Library. And this letter has already been drafted by the BPL's legal counsel, Jacqueline Manson. And looking ahead, we believe that the BPL's deposit should remain at Countway as it has for more than 50 years. From a patron perspective, nothing about access to the collection will change with this transition. And we believe this is the most beneficial decision for us institutionally, especially given our severe collection storage deficit. Harvard has just demonstrated that they're exceptional caretakers for the collection and will commit to ongoing public accessibility. And they are very desirous that the collection stays on site with them. So we are now in active discussions with them about what next steps forward could look like. Pending this dissolution, we'll work on drafting a new formal arrangement with Harvard and Countway with the expectation that a new deposit agreement would go before you the trustees board at the fall meeting. Harvard has confirmed they're very happy to continue to steward the collection with the continuous care they've been providing for the last 50 years until such formal agreement is reached.
So Beth, it's Joe Berman, just a quick question. So there's going to be a sort of a short period of time where we're going to be in limbo because there's not going to be, we're going to terminate the agreement with BML, but not have an agreement with Harvard. But we're just going to rely on Harvard to continue sort of status quo pending that agreement. Is that right?
Well, and we've talked with Jacqueline, our legal counsel, about this, and we will draft sort of a rider to essentially have them commit in writing that they will continue to provide that care contiguously until we draft and agree to the formal agreement. But yes, absolutely, we believe that's important to determine that. But we certainly, they have provided excellent care over the past 50 years. I don't expect any issues, and I think from a patron perspective, it'll be seamless. They will be administered in exactly the same way.
And we won't be sacrificing our ownership rights in any way.
No, absolutely not. And in any new agreement, we would require that the same terms that we could request the collection back at any time be an integral part of any new agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, this is Navjeet, is there anything about the decision of BML that would give us pause about continuing this relationship with Harvard?
No, I don't think so. I think they, for very different reasons, they as an organization are making some different decisions about what their mission and purpose is, which is very separate from our own sort of thinking about the stewardship of our collections. And it again, I think from our perspective, Harvard has been an outstanding steward, and that has never been called into question by anyone. And every member of the party is very in agreement that this dissolution makes sense.
Thank you.
So can I get a motion to terminate the Boston Medical Library BPL deposit relationship, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Yes. Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Hyler,
Yes.
Tyler, and
Yes.
thank you, and Westra.
Yes.
So moved.
Great. Thank you all very much, Madam Chair. That completes the report and action items from the President's report.
Thank you so much, David. We are lucky to have you.
If I may just add, Priscilla, Senator Rush had to leave due to session at the State House that was called for budget.
Good, thank you. Well, let me turn it over now to our trustee, John Hyler and Alan Donahue.
Thanks, Priscilla. So we have, since Evelyn is out, we're going to be going through the financial and audit reports. So Evelyn, I think if we're going to go through the budget with the city, I think that would be a great place for you to jump in on Mayor Wu's recommended operating and capital budgets. So Ellen, if you want to take it away and walk us through that, that would be great.
Absolutely. Good morning, trustees. In the interest of time, I'd suggest that we go right to the recommended budget. We did go over the maintenance budget last time. We have a good news document from Mayor Wu this year. We received 7 new positions with a focus on the branches, 6 new positions for the branches that we're working with Priscilla now to decide, Priscilla Foley, head of neighborhood services, to decide which positions to fund. We also received a 2nd position for IT security, which was directly related to the issue last year. Going down from there, things are pretty static from the budget. There is an increase for green energy electricity initiative that the city will run centrally. We did get a large increase for maintenance for our collections budget, and then some minor cyclical things that bring us down a little bit in other costs, which is, as I say here, Chinatown rent, software licenses, and debt service. So I think pretty straightforward, but happy to pause for any questions. Priscilla, Pamela, if you'd like to go to the next slide then. And again, this is the same information we presented at the March meeting. The external funds are a bit of an estimate because it's not really a maintenance budget. It has a lot of things that we routinely do year in and year out, but it also has things that come up periodically. So this is always a bit of an estimate. We're keeping it about where we were in FY23. We'll probably take a look at it over the summer and see if we'd ask the city to file any changes when it updates its budget on the city website in the fall. And I will pause again for questions if there are any. So with no questions, Pamela, should we take a vote or do you want to wait?
We have to review the capital project with David.
Oh, okay. Apologies.
Yeah, the capital slide is also as proposed and updated at the previous meeting, included here for the record. So if there are no questions on that, I would simply move to the vote.
Next slide, Jay.
Great.
Priscilla, can you make a motion for this?
Yes, I'm calling for, I was on mute. Can I get a motion to approve the mayor's fiscal year recommended operating and city budget?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley, Ben, Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Christina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
where am I? Tyler
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
Thank you. So moved.
Thank you.
Next slide, please, Jay.
So on these next votes, award of the contracts, I think we can go through this pretty quickly. Finance and audit went through all of them and voted to move them forward, but we do need votes. And what I'd like to do is group them together if everybody's okay with that, and walk through each one. And then at the end, just do one vote. Pam, are we allowed to do that? Or do we have to break out a couple of them separate?
Typically, especially because these are larger contracts, if we could do them separately.
Okay, all right. So let's go through them all. B1, award of the contracts, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Voted that the trustees of the Boston Public Library of the City of Boston award a contract to MCOR Services in the amount of $7,672,008.72 to provide mechanical, electrical, and plumbing services for a term of 3 years. It's a pretty good sized contract. It was put out to bid. I don't know if anybody from the BPL wants to make a comment on that.
Sure. We put this out every 3 years. It's a fixed cost bid for each of the 3 years. We do go to the city's equitable procurement team to ask if they have any vendors that we could send it to. We did get 4 and we sent it to 4 vendors and 2 other companies, MCOR and Northeast, excuse me. We ended up getting 2 bids from MCOR for 7.7 and Northeast for 11.4. So it is our largest contract and it handles all the mechanical, electric, and plumbing issues here at Central and at all the branches. On United, we sent it out to 2 vendors. This is the vendor that we've had for a number of years. They are a women-owned business. And they were by far the least expensive. I had 447. The other one was over $1 million. And then finally, the audit firm. We have had Clifton Larson and Allen since, I believe, 2012. They've done a good job for us. We went out to bid this time and we did get a stronger bid, we believe, from Markham. The technical aspects were about the same, but they offered more value in how they address diversity issues, also offering the opportunity for training that they do for their own staff to our staff. And they also take a proactive look at GASB standards and keeping us up to date. So we did with that go with Markham.
Okay, so we're going to need to do a roll call vote on these. The mechanical, so can I have a motion to approve the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contract?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Sorry, I have to read it.
Aye.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved.
Emily, you skipped me. I'm in for that.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ben. You count. Thank you.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve the elevator maintenance contract for
So
400?
moved.
Thank you,
Second.
thank you. Roll call vote.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
Great. A motion to approve our audit review to Markham.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Jabari. Roll call
Arenas,
vote.
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Josina Fori, Linda, Tyler.
Yes.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Linda. I'm sorry. Tyler
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved. Next slide, please, Jay.
We have 4 more contracts.
So Priscilla, you want to keep going? You're on a roll.
Did you want to say anything about these?
No, they're all done through
Okay,
finance and
they're all,
audit. They're pretty
okay, all right,
straightforward.
okay.
Yeah, so if we want to just go through them, go through them.
Okay, all right, so we need a motion to approve the fire alarm contract.
This is to delegate the approval to the Finance and Audit Committee.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Linda. Roll call.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Josina Fori,
Yes. Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved.
A motion to approve the contracts, services relating to critical repair operating budget for fiscal year 23. Motion to approve that.
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
thank you. Roll call.
Yes. Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. So we need a vote for the bibliographical acquisitions material. A motion to approve. So we're now on D2.
Moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved. Next slide, please, Jay.
Good. Do you want to say anything about this, John? Fellows Athenaeum Trust Distribution, we do this annually.
Yeah, it's just an annual contract. It's something that went through finance and audit. It's something that's nothing outside the ordinary and just a continuation of an expenditure with the fellows.
This is run out of the Roxbury branch. Evelyn chairs the committee and works with folks to distribute this money for educational purposes in the Roxbury area.
Go ahead.
I'd like to speak up on that and just
Yes.
second more support for that because I'm on the committee. Evelyn is a great chairwoman and we've been doing work really reaching the community where they're at and offering programs of a wide variety, and I'm really proud of this work. So I just want to share that about this work here.
Great.
So we
Good.
need a motion to approve the Fellows Athenaeum Trust Advisory Committee Trust Fund for their expenditures.
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
Second,
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bob.
Sorry, yes,
Thank
yes.
you. Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
yes,
Cronin,
Yes,
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Douglas,
yes,
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
Thank you. So moved. Next slide. Perfect.
thank you. And John and Ellen, anything about this final vote?
No, it's pretty straightforward. It's Evelyn, Ellen, I mean, I don't know if there's anything here, but it's just,
Very straightforward. This is our
Yeah.
safety valve that we put in place after the summer of 2015, where we had to go forward without trustee approval on a number of items.
Yeah, we didn't want to.
Critical items that came up over the summer. So it just gives us the opportunity to get in front of trustees if we have something of quick nature.
Thank you. And a motion to approve the review of the delegation of certain contracts for the board.
So moved.
Thank you, Jabari.
Second.
Thank you.
Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes,
Berman,
Yes.
Cronin,
yes,
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes,
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
China,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
Thank you. So moved. Next slide.
and the final slide is the proposed schedule of our 2022-23 meetings, and hopefully we'll be back in person. So can I get a motion to approve? You've all received these dates.
so moved.
Thank you, Ben.
Second.
Thank you.
All righty. Arenas,
Yes.
Asim,
Yes.
Bob,
yes,
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes,
Cronin,
yes,
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes,
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
Thank you. Next slide, please. And if I may just say thank you so much, Samara. I believe that was your last vote.
Thank you.
Just before we take new business, as I made an announcement earlier that the city council's budget hearing would be this afternoon, we just got word that our hearing, along with another hearing scheduled for today, has been postponed. So I just wanted to put that on the record as well. Once we have a new date, we'll let everyone know. Thank you.
so the next agenda item is new business, and our vice chair asked me to give a plug. She's going to be speaking on Thursday, the 26th in Rab Hall, and there's going to be a really incredible documentary on Latinos in Boston. That's at 5:30. There are many more fabulous programs, and I know that the trustees, you always check out our Biblio Commons for events. There's some great things coming up, and kudos to the staff, to David and the staff for their leadership in this area. I just can't think of a library that has better programs and such a diversity of programs, that I'm very excited that we're back in, that we're holding some of these in person. You all know about the $200 being able to get married in our beautiful hall, and which sold out. I mean, I don't know how many people we have, but very quickly, really great response. And you know that the mayor came to the library to kick that off. So we've got so many things, so many exciting, but given the time, I'm just going to move now unless somebody has something to add under new business. I'd like to open it up for public comment, please.
Thank you, Priscilla. We have 5 that have signed up for public comment. Jay, just so you have the order, it's Alyssa Kadillik, David Vieira. I'm sorry, there are 4. Samuel Pierce and Siddiqui Kambon. Alyssa, to begin it.
Good morning. Can you folks hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Alyssa. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Alyssa Cadillac. I'm president of ASME Local 1526. I would like to just thank you. First, I actually want to start with one of the votes that you took earlier today to rename the Faneuil Children's Room. I remember, JJ, back in our fight, and the kids were a big part of that. So that's actually something that we 1526 fully supports as well. And we think it's a great testament to someone who was both active, very young and throughout, and will continue hopefully to inspire other children towards the same goals. So I appreciate that and wanted to recognize that. The other thing, just on behalf of 1526, is that the folks we represent, one of the things in the city budget, and as David mentioned, the hearing is canceled for this, or postponed for this afternoon, but we have been raising the issue of air quality in our buildings, and we are dismayed once again to see that there's nothing in the capital projects to work on a plan to improve the air quality across our systems. We have new buildings, which are great. We're renovating buildings, which is great. But that's not enough. If anything has been taught to us over the past 2.5 years, it's that the health and safety of our staff, our community members is most important. And we need to do something. It needs to be purchasing HEPA filters across our system. It needs to be working on a plan as part of the capital project. So the budget that you put forward that includes those capital projects does not include that. And so that's something that, I wanted to raise here so that the trustees are aware of that, and something I will also be raising at the Ways and Means budget hearing. And then we talk about, there was a great presentation about equity. And one of the things that struck me was that Rudy mentioned that she had the full 2 weeks to onboard and learn. And unfortunately, most of the staff that I represent don't get that opportunity. So maybe that's something that the trustees and the administration can work on a little bit better, instead of our folks starting day one and getting thrown in sometimes before they even have an email address set up or know how to access it, as happened to me just yesterday with a new hire. So those are things that, based on what we heard today and going forward, that I hope the trustees will look a little bit more closely at and pay attention to. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, Alyssa. Next, we have David Vieira. David, are you on? I'm not sure if it would be listed under his phone number. Jay, do you see him listed?
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we do. You have 2 minutes.
All right,
Mr. Vieira.
thank you, trustees. I'd also like to pitch in on the approval of the Faneuil renaming of the children's room. I watched this young man grow up in my many visits to the Faneuil branch, and he was truly an inspiration. I've noted from your schedule of proposed meetings that at the moment, all of them are scheduled for Copley Square. And in the past, the trustees have moved 3 of their meetings around to the local branches. And I think it's important that the trustees be seen and heard in the community, and that the community knows that the trustees are there and are able to respond to questions directly from the people who are participating in the neighborhoods. I know that there's a possibility, depending on how things go, that we may not go live, or maybe develop a hybrid, but I highly suggest that you consider that move. Also, there was a branch breakfast scheduled for April 30th, which has been postponed for a while. And I would like to ask the chair if she is aware that if any of the trustees were invited to that breakfast.
The branch breakfast on April 30th?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Okay. My suggestion is that when this is rescheduled, which hopefully will be soon, that the trustees receive an invitation to this breakfast so that they can actually mix and mingle with the members of the friends groups of the various branch libraries. I know that some of you have attended meetings of your branch friends groups, which I applaud, but many of you have not had the opportunity to go around to all of our 24 libraries, and this may be an opportunity to assist you in your future guidance. Thank you.
Hey, David, we can't wait to get back out, get out of these Zoom boxes and get back out. And all of the trustees are saying the same things. We miss being with you as much as you miss being with us. Thank you.
Pamela, may I just make a quick comment in response to what David said, because I think it's really important that we get out and about. And I've joined some of the Facebook groups that some of the friends groups have. But if there's a way that we can learn about meetings and other happenings in other ways besides just through social media, that would be great, because it would be nice to be able to attend virtually or in person some of the regular meetings of the friends groups or some of their events. I don't know if that's possible, but we can talk about it offline, but I just want to put it out there.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Next, we have Samuel Pierce.
Sam, you can unmute when you're ready.
Mr. Pierce, just so you know, you'll have 2 minutes when you begin.
The concern is just.
Hello.
It's something that.
Go right ahead. Mr.
Hello.
Pierce. Yes, go right ahead, Mr. Pierce.
Yeah, so I had a couple of questions in regards to how, I guess, business is normally conducted, mainly because I know that you all just voted on a number of things fiscally that include JJ's room at the Faneuil Library specifically, that's going to be getting $8 million. And the reason why that's significant is because we also recently had a name change to a different library, which is the Roxbury Library from Dudley Square Library. And I'm commenting on that mainly because as we start talking about special collections, we were talking about the 1800s, which is the 19th century. There is really a historical relevance to slavery and Boston that we can't gloss over if we're talking about the library. We're talking about history. We're talking about a number of significant changes that have happened to our city. We have a new mayor. We have a new Boston City Council. We have new employees at the library. We have a new board, which I think is great. I'm excited about some of the diversity and things of that nature. But I would like to see the name really significantly go along with the community sentiment that that we really listen to the community first. If this is actually going to be equitable and we are going to be transparent and we are going to be turning a page, because, you know, for lack of any other explanation, the library board is still majority white. And the reality is Faneuil was a slaveholder. Faneuil Hall was where they literally sold slaves. And so just naming a children's room, JJ's room, is not the same as looking at why do we still have library buildings with slaveholders' names on it, like the Faneuil Library, like the Dudley Library once was.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Pierce.
also, no, I'm still asking my question. I know it's
but
uncomfortable.
everyone is given 2 minutes to be fair and equitable to everyone. I give everyone 2 minutes. I have to move on to the next public comment for the sake of the time of the meeting. Next, I have Siddiqui Kamban. Siddiqui, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. Let me just say I'm back again in regards to an old issue. First of all, I heard the term racial equity within the library system being cast around on a regular basis, and I saw a quote that you had posted by Maya Angelou saying, "If you don't like a thing, then change it." And let me just say that it's not that the community dislikes the Roxbury Library name and wants the Nubian Library name. It's the way that was handled. Bottom line is that Mr. Leonard had reassured me back in 2020 that there was going to be a trustee board meeting in April 2020. It would be on the agenda about the name change, but there would be no vote taken. And a backdoor action taken by then trustee board chairman Robert Gallery proposed that it be Roxbury Library with no consultation with the community whatsoever, which in many respects made us wonder, was this 2020 or 1820 in terms of saying, well, you know, Black people, they don't know what we want. We're going to make a decision for them. So let me just say essentially that we are not going away, and we're making an appeal to this body right here. Let me just say, the brother just mentioned the whole thing around the community sentiment, and that when we had the vote for the change to Nubian Square, we were pleased because our next target was going to be the station. We were pleased to get a message from the office of your board member there, State Representative Tyler, stating that based on the results of the vote, that at the State House, they independently made a decision to change the name to Nubian Station. We thought that would carry over to your body, understanding the fact that the community wants the Nubian Library name. So we are not going away. We have approached elected officials. We're continuing to put the pressure on. And let me make it very clear. I'm not speaking on behalf of Sadiq Kambon. I'm the director of the Black Community Information Center. And the Nubian Square Coalition is a program, the Information Center. So we have not only the 4,000 folks who voted for the name change, but also numerous organizations out here who are constantly inquiring, saying, well, why is it called the Roxbury Library when we got more libraries in Roxbury as it is? So we're calling on this body
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. I need to stop you here.
And change the name to the Nubian Library because we're not going away.
That concludes public comment. Next slide, Jay.
So I just want to say that the library administration has, regarding the name change that you're mentioning, the library administration has fully briefed the mayor's office on the history of the name change from Dudley to Roxbury. The trustees consider this a closed matter and are supportive of the library administration's continuing reference to the branch as Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library at Nubian Square. Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library at Nubian Square. So that's what I would like to say about that. The Nubian Square is in the name. Thank you. Do we need a vote for adjournment? And we're going into our next, okay.
No, you just simply have to adjourn it, and then we will move on to the next.
I'd like
Do we need to go to a different Zoom?
No,
Okay.
everything's the same.
Okay.
This includes the business of the first meeting, our annual meeting as an administrative agency. Thank you very much. We will see you in the fall.
Next, no. Next slide, Jay. I need you to open the meeting as a corporation now, Priscilla.
Okay, I will. I'm calling, opening this meeting, the annual meeting of the trustees as a corporation. And there's a call to order. Do we need to do another roll call?
No, I am just noting for the record that looking at the participants, there are no changes and we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Our first order of business is the Trustees Governance and Development Committee.
Thank you, Priscilla. I'll be brief. We've already mentioned that the nominations of the new trustees, Jose Masso and Lynn Perry Wooten, have been they've been voted on by the Governance and Development Committee. There's no need for a full vote on that. They've been named by Mayor Wu, and we welcome them. The full board needs to vote on the slate of officers, though. And with that, we would like Priscilla Douglas, a vote on Priscilla Douglas remaining chair, Evelyn Arana Ortiz remaining vice chair, and of course, Pam Carver, the glue that holds it all together, to continue as secretary. And I'd love a motion. If anybody has any comments or anything they want to say, please feel free.
Next slide, Jay. Thank you.
If not, I'd like to make a vote I'd
So
like to
moved.
make a move to vote on this. Thanks.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Do we
Aye.
need a roll call on this, Pam?
Yes, I'm sorry. Only two
Great.
more votes and then we're good. Arenas? Oh, I'm sorry, she jumped. Asim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes,
Josina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Westra.
Yes.
So moved. Next slide, Jay. Thank you. Priscilla, just so I can note, you can we can do one vote for the enabling votes as long as you list what they are.
thank you very much. So these are the enabling votes for the signing of the payroll contract, the acceptance on behalf of the corporation of all gifts and special services to be added to the funds is the fifth one, no, six, and for the distribution of income, and then for all of our trust funds. So we will be able to, I need a motion for the enabling of votes.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Yeah.
I'll be taking one vote. Please
We
let me
are-
know if you are opposed to any of them when I ask for your vote.
Hold on one second. I'm just
Oh,
wondering,
sorry.
Nachi, do you have a question on any of these? I know that I'm, okay, all right. Okay, Pamela, so we can, yes, I'd like to have a vote on all of these. A roll.
Thank you, Priscilla. All right. Asim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Douglas, Priscilla.
Yes,
Thank you. Josina Fori,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tyler, China,
Yes.
and Christian Westra.
Yes.
Thank you. Next slide, Jay.
okay, any new business? I just very quickly, not related to this item, but related to Jose Masso III. His son is Jose Fabio Masso. Don't get them, they're two different people, first and last name, but the middle name differs. And I just wanted you to know that as you hear these two names and Jose, the son, is the head of Human Services, our area that we'll be reporting into.
Next slide, Jay.
This concludes the business of the annual meeting. I'll be seeing some of you over the summer on Zoom or in some committee meeting, but other than that, I look forward to thank you all for your service, your commitment, all the extra things that you do to make our library great.
So I have one question before we conclude.
Yes.
On the Nubian Square matter, can you just review, or David, the sequencing after the original vote where Roxbury carried the day? Did we add at some point at Nubian Square as a compromise effort?
The history of that point, Trustee Bradley, was that administratively we began referring to that branch with the full name, including its location. We did not go back and make an actual have a trustee vote on that, but really began doing that administratively as a recognition for at least what we understand as part of the sentiment behind the request, which is recognizing the geographic location in its new name. And so that is how we arrived at the updated reference, which Chair Douglas referenced as the Roxbury branch of the Boston Public Library at Nubian Square.
Yeah. So that's an administrative decision rather than an official trustee decision.
Correct.
I would be open to making an official trustee designation. I don't know how anyone else feels about it. I was on the losing end of that vote, but it's evident that there's still strong community sentiment about that, and it might be a good thing for the trustees to weigh in on the at Nubian Square element of the name to give it more official stature.
Can I just respond to that? I mean, I like the idea of the trustees supporting management in that decision, but I really do worry sometimes that that this is a larger conversation. I just think it's so important to empower management and setting a precedent that things like this require board votes as opposed to being within the purview of management is, I think, a little bit of a troubling concept. I wonder sometimes if some of the matters we vote on as it is, frankly, should be decisions made by management and really aren't about governance, which is what I think boards should really be focused more on. So I like the idea of supporting the management in this, but I don't know that we want to start just more arbitrarily saying that things should come up to a board vote just because of the governance versus management issues that I think we always have to be sensitive to.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Cheryl. I do think there's certain things that we have to do that's different from some other boards on some of the administration, but I understand what you're saying. I voted with Ben on this, and I guess so. What I'm looking at, Ben, is we made a decision. It's kind of exhausting every meeting to go through it over and over and over again. I do think there was a compromise with the way that we have worded it, and I'd be interested in David and Priscilla's comments on this. But I do think it's time to kind of move on from it. It was a decision made by the board and by the library staff. So I guess that's kind of where I am on it. But I think hearing from David and Priscilla on this might be helpful.
So when in China, this is your district, so you can weigh in as well. This is we're talking Tiki purports to be representing this huge coalition of people. We need to think about the other side. We had the Friends of the Roxbury branch. We had the Fellows, we had the Bay State Banner, we had the Roxbury Historical Coalition. There are many more individuals on the other side than are represented by Siddiqui. And they all indicated that they wanted the name of the library. So what we have is a situation where we have the people who are in favor do not show up for every meeting to voice their support. So we're having a lopsided type of presentation and urgency from people who, from a small group of individuals. And so Linda and China, they know how this kind of works. So just jump in.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. Thank you so much. And I agree with a lot of what was already said. I just wanted to kind of just disconnect the parallel that was just made between the legislation being passed and renaming the actual station to this process that we have to rename a library. They're two totally different processes and two totally different, avenues to how you get that done. And one of the root ways in how you get things done as it pertains to our board here is making sure that you work with the Friends group. And we've time and time again offered the opportunity to be able to work with the Friends group or created that olive branch between our Friends group and folks that desire to rename the library whatever they want to rename it, because there's other folks that have other ideas as well that are not Nubian, that's not the names that we've heard today. And so we really got to encourage folks to work with their Friends group. I forget who just mentioned that a second ago, but empowering our groups and empowering the groups that are kind of under our umbrella is very important. So I think that if we encourage them to work with the Friends group, that is exactly doing that, empowering the Friends group. And that's where this conversation can kind of take place, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Very good. And I know you mentioned my name, Priscilla, so I'll just jump in really quick and I defer to Rep. Tyler, her district, but I totally agree in terms of Chairwoman. Thank you for laying out that as we went through this process, there were multiple constituencies that came to the conversation and came to the table. And unfortunately, as the Chairwoman said, those who supported Roxbury, because Roxbury is a marker in our community in terms of a Black community, folks wanted that, right? And so this was where, we as a board voted for the Roxbury branch, but I love the piece of adding at Nubian Square, right? Because that is where it is located. And so, yeah, I think it's important. We thank you all, for continuing to show up, right? And to voice your opinions. And so I just agree with the Chairwoman and folks on the call.
I just want to say one other thing. When you go back and you read the historical documents about this economic zone, so remember, this was an area that was supposed to be a designated economic zone. And the original name that was proposed by, the ICI and all of those faith was Mandela, to name this area after Mandela. And so you go back to, and there was some interest for that particular name. And it went out, it just kind of disappeared after, in the transition when Dorothy Terrell, and I was engaged and involved in all of this, when Dorothy Terrell left ICI, and then we had another interim director, and I think now Steve Grossman is there, I think. So there's a whole history. And again, Siddiqui was not an integral person to any of those conversations. So he has his group, but they're not engaged in the key area for that whole area is jobs, workforce development, economic empowerment. And this effort that he's mounting with the name has nothing to do with bringing jobs and helping the economy of the businesses in that area.
Yeah, I would just say I agree with Priscilla's comments, the comments from China and Linda and others. I can appreciate why there's strong views on this position. I wasn't involved in the original naming decision, but I would note that since becoming a trustee, I would estimate that something like half of the public comments we get have related to this issue, and it doesn't really necessarily sit well with me that this topic has monopolized the discussion to the extent that it has. I think there are a lot of really important issues around equity and access and so many important things that we need to be discussing. And I think if we've come to a good compromise that is reflective of a robust process, we should just accept it and move on.
However,
I agree with Christian on that. That's a very good observation. Thank you for that.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do relative to public comment. So as you noticed today, I actually said something, and that was based on some of my one-off conversations with you all for us to not have, to leave these meetings with the issue seeming to be open-ended or under discussion. It isn't, it's a closed issue.
And
Great.
Madam Chair,
Go.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I just wanted to comment really quickly on, the issue at hand. The question that was asked of the group was to change the name of the library. And so we actually checked that box off and accomplished that goal. So I just want to remind folks, let's give ourselves some credit here, because that was the question. Can you change? Yep. Now, the name wasn't preferable to this particular group. And again, we had other groups asking for different names, some of which I thought were pretty interesting, but this particular group isn't happy. So we got to figure out how we're going to balance the ship and also to give ourselves credit because we accomplished that goal.
Great. Priscilla, hey, just to change the subject, if that's okay with people, I just had one quick question and not to be answered now, but David, this whole social media and what's going on in some of the states and social media and trying to take censorship into that area now, It's such a big part of our library as well, and this generation coming up on information flow. Have we started to develop an idea or position on what our statement is on the kind of the technology aspect of transfer of information through some of these, through social media? And no answer now, but I think it would be a worthwhile subject matter to maybe discuss as we talk about censorship and freedom of information flow.
Yeah, I think we'd be happy to prepare a briefing on that. I think it's worth remembering that libraries exist as a limited public forum. And so because we have a defined purpose and mission that is educational and informative, we have the authority and right to set rules around how that type of discourse is to be managed. At the same time, institutionally, we would not want to deviate from our free to all principles where all are welcome and are invited, clearly as long as you don't interfere with someone else's enjoyment of our spaces, programs, and services. So I think that's the framing for this. And additionally, with respect to social media in particular, we do now have a media literacy specialist that's more directed towards the broadcast media, journalism, and that space. But I think we're building our own skills around how to educate and inform and engage with our public and our population more broadly on this topics. The most important thing is, from a library's point of view, is to provide people with the tools to make their own decisions and to be able to tell, truth from fiction, or fiction from nonfiction, opinion from fact. And so this is work that we're certainly engaged in. But yes, we'd be happy to prepare a briefing on that for a later meeting.
All right. So we're going to wrap up. Thank you all so very much for your time, and again for your commitment, and look forward to our ongoing conversations. David's open, I'm open, so please continue the conversations. We welcome them. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Good meeting.
Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.